All right. Hey, YouTubers, welcome. All right, you guys are here. Excellent. Let me get TikTok. TikTok's already ready. All right. Boom. TikTok, mirror, go. And of course, I just had some cottage cheese, which I wasn't thinking the other day. Cottage cheese was what made me go. And I just did it again. I was starving before the show, and I went, "Oh, cottage cheese, that'll help." And of course, I had some, and now I'm like, "Oh God." Anyway, hey Nick. Anyway, hello everybody. Hello TikTokers, Discordians, YouTubers, tubers. I'll call you tubers. How's everybody doing this evening? Oh, hold on. I was gonna put my phone on do not disturb so I don't get any calls or any of that kind of stuff. Hang on, focus. There we go. Do not disturb. All right. That will protect us for an hour. It goes well, Crumbs. How it go for you? How are we all doing this evening? Friday night. Woo, woo, woo. It's not exactly warm here. We're kind of dealing with cold weather for the next week still in DC, which I'm not thrilled about. This should be much warmer now. Ukraine news. I mean, we'll talk. We are going to talk about the Ukraine news. I think the scariest stuff is what's coming from the Trump administration, which we'll talk about. But we shall. Other than that, welcome, folks. Oh, Gran Canaria. Oh, don't make me jealous. Don't make me jealous. Hey, Rhea. Hey, guys. Turkey season, spring turkey season. What is that? You're going to go turkey hunting, Misha? Say it ain't so. Hey, Pedro. Was it William? Sharon? Running. Multiple gifts coming in. Thanks, guys. Discord, folks. No one's commented yet. I'm assuming you guys can hear me. Yeah, on Discord. No one's like commenting, but I hope. We hope. Yes. Okay. Katie says yes. Okay. There you go. You guys are a quieter bunch because you're usually fewer, but nonetheless, just wanted to make sure. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Jess. Hey, Maeve. Anyway, so welcome, guys. This is my show. You guys know how this works. Or anybody who's not been with us. Actually, hold on. I'm going to adjust my camera again so it's not. There we go. So it's not resting on my computer. That's pretty good. There we go. Because I don't want it to like move when I move the table. That should be pretty good. Okay, that should be pretty good. But yeah, so the way the show works, I cover the latest news from the U.S. and from Ukraine both. Basically, look at what's going on with the Trump administration, the top American news, and then we also talk about the latest news from Ukraine and the war as well. Tomorrow, I've got my coffee talk. Remember, for the paid monthly subscribers, that's everybody who's an SNN on TikTok, whose name is colored other than white on Discord and on YouTube. Again, anybody who's got a green name. You guys are the monthlies. Join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time U.S. on TikTok, Discord, YouTube. And we do a special hangout show, just you guys and me, as a thank you. Hey, DBZ in the UK. Jorge, thank you for the gift. Carol, Martin, Patricia, File. Do keep the gifts coming, guys. I do this for a living, as you guys know. The gifts help basically pay the bills. So thank you for that. Let's get rolling. So, the big story this week, as you all know, is the economy, Trump, the tariffs, the ongoing turmoil in the U.S. stock market, international finance. Real big scare this week with bonds and basically, and we're going to talk about more of that in a second, but the basic issue there, thank you, Elizabeth, thank you, Lee, is people with money around the world no longer trust the U.S. They don't want to put their money here. They don't want to put it in our stocks. They don't want to put it in our bonds. They don't want to put it in the U.S. dollar because the U.S. dollar is falling as well. It's very bad. I was I was talking to my cousin about this today and trying to think about this. And thank you, Terrence, for subscribing. And it makes me think of sort of the larger, I've talked about this before with sort of RFK Jr., how Trump's administration is an administration that specializes in a lack of expertise. Thank you, Big Hawk. Thank you, Blue. It is they are proud of not being specialists. Or I should say, they are proud of disrespecting the specialists, right? Oh, scientists, right? God forbid they listen to scientists. God forbid they listen to the experts on vaccines, right? And they're doing the same thing on economics. It's the same kind of, I mean, science overall, climate change, right? All that. I mean, everything with science, they're anti-science. They don't like facts. They don't like data. They don't like truth. Trump's denial of the election stuff. It all comes down to various truths that are being denied. And unfortunately, the same things happen with economics. And we should not be surprised that the same people who have elevated, I don't know if the word, but know nothings, thank you, adventures, elevated not just a lack of expertise. I'm not sure sort of what word to use here, right? But when you make people be in charge of agencies and in charge of your government who literally don't know what's going on. Look at the Doge kids. Elon hired a bunch of children to basically rip apart the US government. Children with no experience in government, no experience in federal programs, no experience in the computer programs that they're destroying. And he's hired these guys. And it is a lack of respect. It is a disrespect for expertise. It's a disrespect for experience, disrespect for knowledge. Anyway, we are now seeing it play out in the economic sphere as well. We're seeing the Trump administration destroy the international economic system, destroy the U.S. economic reputation, which also is interesting because when you think about it, we've been talking about this a lot of times on the show. We talk about the war in Ukraine, which I'm going to talk about next. We talk about foreign policy, my background, my expertise, and I talk about how Donald Trump has so destroyed U.S. credibility on foreign policy and on defense matters, right? Thank you, Marsha, for the gift. Thank you, Alan, as well. And Candy. So I'm looking up here, running Marsha Adventures, Marsha. And how our allies can no longer trust us. Our allies can no longer trust our word, right? I mean, NATO can no longer trust us. Trump has even suggested that Putin invade Europe, and he said he wouldn't come and help. Thank you, Marie, Carmelina, Linda. On the international stage, Trump has destroyed our credibility in terms of, again, foreign policy, in terms of U.S. foreign aid, right? Now the U.S. has said we're no longer going to help poor, starving people in Africa or people with AIDS or people with other diseases. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Loki, Leighton. And the same thing is happening now on economics, right? We've destroyed our reputation on defense. Nobody can trust us on defense anymore. NATO can't trust us. NATO doesn't know if we'll abide by our NATO treaty obligations, right? We've destroyed our reputation on foreign policy and diplomacy, right? Our allies no longer trust us, nor should they. Not just because of the tariffs and what we did last week, but look at we've threatened to invade Canada and steal and annex the whole country. We've threatened to invade Danish territory of Greenland and go to war with Greenland and frankly all of NATO. So our allies don't trust us on the diplomacy front, and now we're finding on the economic front they don't trust us either. And therefore, people are pulling their money from U.S. Treasury bonds, from government bonds. They're pulling their money from the U.S. stock market. They're pulling their money from the U.S. dollar. And we're seeing all of those go down, which is incredibly dangerous for the U.S. economy and for the world economy. KK says, I'm from Denmark. Sorry. On behalf of half of our country, sorry. It's very bad. And again, the bond thing this week has been especially troublesome. That story we've talked about a lot. Basically, what's going on is, in addition to investors not wanting to invest in America at all, for a variety of reasons, they're afraid of where the economy is going. They think we're heading for a recession. They think we're heading for inflation. They also think we're run by someone who doesn't know what they're doing, by someone who's vindictive, by someone who doesn't care if he destroys the economy or destroys our defense agreements or destroys our diplomacy, so that they look at the U.S. and they think this is not a stable country and the rule of law. We've talked about that too recently, right? I mean, Trump just signed an executive order ordering the FBI to investigate 2 people because they were mean to him. One guy because he wrote a book critical of Trump. Trump now has ordered an FBI investigation of this guy. Another guy because he literally, one of the reasons Trump gave for ordering an FBI investigation of a former Trump official is that the former Trump official said that Trump didn't win the 2020 election, which we know Trump did not win. Part of the basis for Trump ordering an FBI investigation of this man is that the man said Trump didn't win the election. Trump also accused the other guy, Miles Taylor. Trump said that Miles Taylor criticizing Trump in a book was akin to treason and could even be treason. And that's why he wants the FBI to investigate him, because he criticized Donald Trump in a book. If you're looking to invest in the U.S., you're going to look at this and say, I don't know that I want my money there. I was talking to my cousin today about it, and I said, I don't know that I want my money here. I've been worried. My mom had died last summer, right? And I'm in charge of the estate. And, slowly you give them, the house sold, you get some money from the house, you slowly start giving that money out to your siblings and the people who get the money, right? But you're supposed to go very slowly. You're supposed to be careful about it, right? To make sure you've paid off all your debts and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's still money from the sale of the house that we've got. And I've got to watch that. I'm in charge of the estate. I've got to make sure it's invested smartly, because it's not just my money, it's my sister's money, it's my brother's money, right? And therefore, I invested it very conservatively. I put it in a money market of government treasury bonds. Those very bonds that we're talking about, right? That everyone's talking about this week, because they're one of the safest investments you can invest in. And even I, investing in one of the safest investments ever, right? Trying to watch the money that my siblings will eventually get. Even I have been worried as to whether that money is safe, right? And I contacted my cousin a few times who knows these things inside out. And I was like, okay, it's worrying me a little. People are talking about bonds. People are talking about not trusting US government bonds. I invested our inheritance money in government bonds, right? Is there any risk there? And pretty much there isn't. I mean, there really isn't, unless the US government literally stops paying bonds. I mean, stops like paying for the bonds, or stops, it doesn't let you sell them, which isn't going to happen. But but the point here, the reason I'm bringing this up is I, as an American who's well-educated, am worried about whether it's safe to invest in US government bonds. And I live here in Washington, D.C. I have a law degree and a master's. I'm not a dumb guy. And I'm worried as to whether it's safe to invest in US government bonds. And I was telling my cousin today, I said, I'm not the expert like you are. My cousin really knows financial stuff. I mean, he does that for a living. But I said, I'm not the expert you are. But I sit here and go, do I think Donald Trump would get angry and simply not pay for the bonds, right? You buy US government bonds, you try to sell them, and the government has to give you your money back. Do I think Donald Trump would not give me my money back? Oh, yeah, absolutely, right? Do I think if the bond market exploded and the government had to step in to bail me out, do I think Donald Trump might say, well, you're in Washington, D.C. We're not going to bail out people who live in Democratic states. We're only going to bail out people who live in states that are Republican. Do I think Trump would do that? Of course he would. I don't know that he will do that. Is it something Trump would do? Oh, yeah, of course he would. Meaning, if you heard Trump doing that, would you say, oh, he'd never do that? Of course you'd say, no, that sounds like Trump. But the point is that it leads you to not trust investing in America. And it leads me to not trust investing in America. Imagine what it does to people around the world who don't even know our government as well as I do, and our country as well as I do, right? That's what's going on. It's very, very scary. Now, one very scary indicator is a measure of consumer confidence plummeted today, and a new numbers came out. This is very scary because I've told you guys this before, but in terms of economics, to me, this is one of the most interesting facts I learned in economics. Thank you, Mariah. One of the most interesting facts, thank you, Tiptoe, for the gifts, because I think it's so impactful. More or less, two-thirds of the U.S. economy is based on consumer spending, meaning economic activity, good or bad, going up, going down. Two-thirds of it is you and me spending money. It's us buying things. Regular consumers buying stuff. Therefore, when consumers get worried, when consumers like you and me start to say, I don't know, I'm kind of worried about a recession. I'm kind of worried about inflation. I'm kind of worried about spending money. That has a huge ripple effect in terms of hurting the economy overall, pushing us into a recession, et cetera. Listen to this from the Wall Street Journal. The University of Michigan's closely watched consumer sentiment index nosedived to 50.8% in April, or 50.8 in April from 57 last month. Sentiment is now at its second lowest level in history. This is the public perception of the economy and where it's going. It is at its second lowest level in history in terms of what Americans think is coming next for our economy. They have the worst impression, the second worst impression in history of what's going to happen to our economy next under Trump. Okay? That's pretty bad. Expectations for inflation hit the highest level in 44 years. Meanwhile, Wall Street executives warned tariffs were sending the economy into the unknown and that the uncertainty was already hurting consumers and companies alike. So that's one big, thank you, Randy Fred. That's one big problem there is consumer confidence. Her King says consumer confidence is the first sign of a recession. I don't know about that. What I mean is, I don't know, that may be true. At the very least, consumer confidence is a precursor to it. It can be a precursor to a recession, because if the economy overall, if 2/3 of the economy is based on consumers spending money, you and me spending money, and you and I think that the economy is in such trouble that it's the second worst in American history that it's been recorded, right? That the consumer sentiment about the economy is so low and so bad, then it means we're probably going to spend less money. We're not going to go on that vacation. We're not going to buy that house. If we spend stuff, we're going to spend a little more cheaply, right? We're not going to buy an extra TV for the extra bedroom when Amazon Prime Day comes next time, right? We're going to hold off on spending the money. That is what can cause a recession. That is what can tip you into or add to the possibility of causing a recession. I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't know necessarily whether this is an indicator of a recession already beginning. It is certainly an indicator of what can cause a recession. That's my point, because consumer sentiment is such a large part of the economy. Very scary stuff. China today, speaking of the ongoing chaos, China today said it would raise its tariff on U.S. goods to 125% to match what the White House had done the other day. China did say one thing that I thought was interesting. The Chinese said they're done playing games with Trump. They're not going to raise tariffs anymore because 125% basically just shuts things down. The Chinese said 125% tariff, which is 125% tax on anything that comes into our country, anything that comes into China. I should say anything that comes into our country from China, anything that we sell to China, the Chinese put 125% tax on. And 125% means literally if it's $100, the thing you buy, you're going to pay $125 tax in addition to the $100 cost that you pay for the item. That's how much 125% tariff is, right? It's huge. The Chinese said, look, with 125% tariff, trade is ended. No American products are going to sell in China. We're not going to play this game anymore. They called it a joke that Trump kept raising the levels of the tariffs. So the Chinese said, you know what? You go and do whatever you want, Trump. If you want to raise the tariff on us again, go ahead. It's irrelevant. At the levels they're at now, it's pretty much shut down all trade. So that's where we are. China and America. Again, China is our third biggest trade partner. China and the U.S. are the two largest economies in the world. And we pretty much have shut down at least half of trade between our countries from what I was reading. Let me give you a little more on that. Trade in goods between the U.S. and China topped $582 billion last year. This is also from the Wall Street Journal. Some economists say that figure is poised to shrink by half or more if both sides don't take back their tariff war. So meaning at least half the trade between the U.S. and Canada. Thank you, Tiger Pug. I appreciate the sea bottom. Coral. We'll call it coral. Exactly. Thank you for that. It's going to kill at least half of the trade between the U.S. and China. American companies are canceling orders from Chinese factories, and some manufacturers in China are putting their workers on temporary leave. China exports much more to the U.S. than it imports. So its retaliatory tariffs carry less weight for the overall U.S. economy than Trump's tariffs do for China. Still, China is the third largest buyer of U.S. goods, purchasing about 143 billion products last year, including soybeans, aircrafts, and petroleum are among the goods sold by the U.S. to China. One other indicator, actually my cousin was the one who pointed this out to me. I heard about it yesterday, but I didn't quite get the details. Another indicator of just how bad the U.S. economy is doing under Trump and just how bad the U.S. economic reputation is doing, Greek government bonds are now trusted more than U.S. government bonds. That's how bad it is. The yield on U.S. government bonds, the interest rate you get, so to speak, on U.S. government bonds is now significantly, it's not just higher, it's significantly higher than what you get on Greek bonds. That's because U.S. bonds are not as in demand as Greek bonds. Basically, buyers, it gets very complicated. The whole bond, I hate bonds, frankly. There's an inverse relationship of price. It's a crazy, confusing thing. But the main point to understand is when people don't want bonds, when they don't buy them, when they sell them, the interest rate goes up on the bonds. Basically, there's more interest in Greek bonds than American bonds because people perceive Greek bonds to be a safer investment than American bonds. Yeah, the rate, I had the rate, and then I thought, I'm not going to, I don't need it for you guys, but the rate, actually, I can tell you the rate just for fun. Anybody who's a little bit of a geek on this, who wants to know the rate, let me pull this up. I think I have it here. This is crazy. I mean, this is absolutely crazy stuff. Hold on, let me pull this up. Photos. Here are my Greek bonds. So for example, 30-year U.S. Treasury bond, 4.873%. 30-year Greek bond, 4.23. So 4.23 versus 4.873, that's a lot more. That's more than 10%. 3.541% yield, interest rates. American, 4.47%. On the 10-year, the American is over a 1% more that you get for the American bond. Again, getting more for the American bond, it's very complicated, but getting more for the American bond means people think the U.S. is doing worse than Greece. And they're more willing to invest in Greece and buy Greek bonds than they would the American bonds. That is, I love my Greece. I'm Greek American. I love Greece, but that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad stuff. It's a huge difference on the 10-year. Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. This is and the problem is, and this is something, again, I go back to what I've said with what I've said in terms of Trump and our national security. And I've said repeatedly, for example, that unfortunately, Trump, nothing I can do about the audio, Jillian. There's no reason it should be breaking up. Nothing I can do. By the way, is audio being bad on Discord? I'm going to guess it's just YouTube that the audio is breaking up because YouTube does things like that, unfortunately. I'm going to move this cord around, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. It's cutting in and out. No idea why. Yeah, on Discord, it's fine, of course. There's absolutely nothing I can do on YouTube because YouTube won't let me adjust things like this. I don't know why. I'm looking again, but I guarantee you there's nothing I can do. Yeah, this really YouTube kind of ticks me off on this. It doesn't let you change things like that while a show is going. Yeah, no idea. The only thing I can do, everything else is great. The only thing I can do for YouTube is I can kill the show on YouTube and come back. If it's that bad, do you want me to? And we'll see what happens. Let's try it. I'm going to kill the YouTube show and just put my computer mic on. For the rest of you, we'll wait a second. YouTube, I'm killing the show and I've got to create a new one. It's not going to let me come. I'm going to create a new show. And so look for the new show. The rest of you, hang on. I've got to do this to help the YouTuber.